Hi folks. Right, we've got a number of new people and there's been a couple of things recently where people have struggled with some of the things, not being sure what to do. So I thought we'd go back to basics here. So the first thing I'm going to do is a graduated wash. Now we're doing this wet in wet. I have got some colour on my brush purely so that you can see what I'm doing. Normally this would just be done with plain water. I'm wetting the paper. Now, I watch people wet the paper and it's a lot of going over. You really don't want to. You want to try and use nice big strokes. I always do horizontal, then vertical. And then leave it for a good 4 seconds plus to soak back in. Now you can see on the camera that this is quite shiny. I could go in and apply my paint. Because we're using small pieces of paper, I'm using roughly 7.5 inches by 5.5 or 18 centimeters by 14. So you have plenty of time, but when you move on to a bigger paper, what happens is that people are getting dry patches before they actually apply their paint, and then this obviously has a problem. So all I'm doing is damping my brush down. If you've got little pools of paint on the paper, you don't need to do that, but if not, then a damp brush, and again I'm going back over it horizontally, and all I'm doing is making sure that the paper is wet evenly all over. So now I'm just going to go straight in. I'm picking up some paint which is ultramarine blue and starting at the top. Again, nice big strokes of the brush. Doesn't matter if you get these little lines, they'll disappear. So nice big strokes with the brush. If you need to reload your brush, reload it, but start again at the top of the paper and bring it down. You want this to get lighter and paler as it gets towards the bottom. So it's a graduated wash. It's gradually getting darker as it moves lower. Now let's say we're going to go and pick out some clouds. There's numerous, and I mean numerous, ways of doing this. I'm just washing my brush, drying it out, bit of tissue, and I'm going to go back in now. I generally, if I'm going to put clouds on, I'll look at what the paint's already doing. I've already got some banded light areas. By this, I mean areas where the brush has left marks behind that are lighter than other areas. So I'll naturally look at those areas as the point at which I am going to start taking out. Now I've got the same brush I applied the paint with. All I've done is washed it, dried it out, and I'm just lightly touching onto that area. And wherever the brush touches, because it's drier than the paper, it's lifting out some of the paint. I'm concentrating on having reasonable shapes on the top of the clouds, or what will be the clouds, rather than the bottom. The top's the bit that you want to get sort of slightly rounded. I'm loath to say the word rounded because they're not always, but when you're painting you need to start somewhere. So think of the tops as being the thing that needs to be rounded, and all I'm doing is I'm picking out the areas on the paper where there's already some light patterns in it. And the clouds want to be a little bit bigger as they go up. Now, if you don't put too much pressure on the brush against the paper, then what will happen is it will leave some of the colour, but it'll just give you some highlights. And this really is a more natural look, I think, to the clouds. It's not often you get clouds that are pure white. They've normally got bits of colour in them. So just touching on the top, and I'm almost barely touching on the paper. Now you can do this quite easily while your sky is wet, but if your sky has gone drier, then you will either need to have a more damp brush or use some damp kitchen roll to lift out. So I've got quite a nice collection of clouds there. So we're going to leave that one and move on.